God bless everybody. Today it's April 19th, 2025. I want to do a quick video because I have updated the website and I wanted to just go over some of those changes. So if you go to endofdayssurvival.com, you can go and look at my free Wix site. This gives you all the information, PDFs, charts. So you can click on these charts, these PDFs, that will bring up a physical chart. Let's say like this one, which is the 117 step vision, which gives you the breakdown of the 22 chapters and how to apply the 3 subvisions that John has while he's in heaven, and how that then makes a chronological book if you read chapter 1 to 6, 8 to 10, 15, 16, 20, 22, and then layer in the 3 subvisions that John has. It makes a whole lot more sense. I think it also gives you an easy way to actually look at the book differently with a different optics, so you understand it is chronological. There is 3 subvisions that you have to apply. When you look at this warning of 8:13, it clearly tells you need to watch the last 3 trumpets, the 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpet, and that they're going to recur in these subvisions that John gives you. Each PDF gives you a different chart. This second PDF is Nebuchadnezzar's statue dream, that Daniel interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2 and goes through the history of the 8 kingdoms and how we end up in a beast kingdom. When you get into this third PDF, this is a pretty important one because this actually breaks down the 12 chapters of Daniel into a chart that gives you the footprint of the beast kingdom once he comes out and he's overcome the Middle East, basically, because the footprint of the beast kingdom is in the Middle East. When you click on this PDF, you can see I've gone through each of the chapters, how they reflect from these stories he's explaining to you here into these animal beasts as you move into Daniel 7, into footprints of territories that ends up becoming a beast kingdom, or a footprint of a beast kingdom at the very end of time, or in the last week of Daniel, or the 70th week. So I've done this so that you can understand that in the time of history, now I've shown you this because you've got the statue here. Like I say, once you hit the iron legs, people get confused because they don't go to the Ottoman Empire when you get to the feet. But when you get into Daniel and you can actually see these animal creatures and how they affected specific areas of the Middle East, and then you overlay them, they give you a beast system at the end. And he clearly tells you that these 3 kingdoms will be diversified into a 4th beast kingdom. And I do have videos out here that do explain this, but I'm just going over these charts quickly so you understand what they're about. Now when you get into the 4th PDF, it gets into the Paradigm 2030 chart, and it also adds some additional text information of clarification on different pieces of information that are actually found in the Paradigm 2030 chart. So when you click on this PDF, you can see not only do you get the Paradigm 2030 flow chart that goes through basically the next 5 years as we move through this Shemitah cycle, which is extremely important because once you hit the end of this Shemitah cycle, you complete the 2,000 years and you go into 2030, and that is extremely important because that is a 2-day creation. And what I mean by that is when you go from Adam to Jesus, there's 4,000 years. When you go from Jesus to today, when he comes back, you would have 2,000 more years. And so once you get into that last day, that is the last 1,000 years, or the millennial period. And so you have a 7-day creation period with 7,000 years into the eternity. This chart also gives you some of the breakdowns in definition of timing and how I built these definitions into the chart, especially affecting not only the Shemitah cycle, the 1260 days that falls, or the 7 years that falls in the Shemitah cycle, I should say, but it also gives you a breakdown of where the 1290 days, 1335 days, and the 2300 days are located, how they work in the chart, as well as it talks about definitions like what the sorrows and birth pains truly are, and how to determine when that time is. Tribulation also is extremely important, understanding that length of period of time, and also Great Tribulation. At the end here, it talks about how you can break down the 1,000 years of basically the 1,000 years of our time as one day of God. And so when you go into this, it breaks this down so you understand that when he talks about an hour of the Lord's day, that is approximately 15 days on earth. Okay, and I've gone through the math here to let you know how that's found. And so when he says, there's silence in heaven for about a half an hour, it's about 7.5 days on earth. When it talks about, especially in Ezekiel, it gives the 10 nations power for an hour to attack the nation of Israel. That's about 15 days. So I go through all these different terminologies and stuff. I don't want to make this a long video, but I'm just letting you know that that's what these charts are all about. When you get into the 5th PDF, it's just the Paradigm 2030 chart without text files or definitions. So when you get into this chart, it just gives you a printable. Now it's getting harder to print because the chart's getting more and more extended due to the information that's being placed on here. The chart itself is not changing in the time frame it's in. It's just I'm having to compress more information into the chart, which is making the text harder to read on a single piece of paper without blowing it up. That's one of the reasons I put it on PDF, so you can actually come out and look at this. So that you can understand. And I give you a date up here on when I've adjusted it the last time, so you can determine when I've actually made a modification or something like that on the charts. And you can see these modifications and when I did them on these chart bottoms here. So when you click on there, you're going to know when I modified the chart and what chart it's taking you to. Up here also gives you a breakdown of what the 5 charts are, so that you can understand what each one reflects. Now in this bottom section is all video. What I did was I had a scrolling issue to where it wouldn't stop. It just kept scrolling down the page, and it took me a while to figure out exactly what was happening there. So I've narrowed this down to, I think, 7 videos a page. Wanted to stay in God's world on the 7. And now you can actually subscribe to the page or the site easier, and you can also apply your information if you have any questions and submit that much easier, to where I had a person that was having trouble asking me a question because it kept scrolling down. You never would get to the contact information. So I thought that was extremely important. So the only issue I seem to be having is when I go to switch to mobile. And it's not a real big issue, but it is something I can't seem to rectify. So if anybody knows anything about Wix, please let me know how to fix this, because I can't seem to get rid of this F in the middle of this section here. And I've tried to rebuild this 2 or 3 times, and I don't know if it's something due to it's a free site, or it's the type of section I picked to use, but there is an F out here I can't seem to eliminate. Beyond that, I believe the mobile site gives you a really good ability to read and see this site on your phone. So I hope this gives you a really good resource to go out and look at the videos, get a better understanding of what's getting ready to happen. And like I say, the most important thing is to find the Lord Jesus. Without him, it doesn't matter. God bless and have a great night.